Spotlight this evening. President Obama is getting ready to tell the nation exactly why we are in this conflict and hopefully give concrete answers on our strategy to combat Colonel Gaddafi's forces in the weeks ahead. Congressman Adam Smith is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. And Congressman, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
I want to start with this. You were on the call with President Obama regarding Libya. Did he discuss at all on that call his communication strategy, when he would speak to voters, to Americans?
No, he did not. I mean, obviously that's going to happen this evening. But the main purpose of that call was to get all members of Congress up to date on what the plan was, what the initial goal, which has been stated, to protect the civilian population from Gaddafi's forces, and then answer any questions that members of Congress had to hopefully get them more clear on what the mission is and where it's going. So he didn't talk about when he was going to speak, but obviously we all know that's going to be this evening.
Now, Congressman, you've been very clear, pretty clear here, in saying that the mission is not about getting Gaddafi out. Why is it you think that Americans and some lawmakers are saying we're confused, we don't know what the objective is here?
Well, I think people are mistaking the difference between a military mission and then the broader diplomatic mission. And I think both Secretary Clinton and Secretary Gates have explained that very clearly this past weekend. That, look, in the short term, what can the military accomplish? Well, the military can stop Gaddafi's forces from slaughtering civilians. And that's what they've done over the course of the last week. But then you take it the next step and say, well, do we want a full-scale invasion where we militarily go in and try to overthrow Gaddafi? The complications and the potential for greater civilian casualties in that type of military mission are enormous. But as Secretary Clinton has said, that's not the only tool we have to drive Gaddafi from power. Yes, we want him out. No, we don't want to do it at the enormous cost of a military invasion. So we're increasing diplomatic pressure. We're increasing economic pressure. I have heard they're trying to work back channels with talking to members of the Libyan military, if they can open them up, who are interested at this point in something more peaceful than backing Gaddafi. There's a number of different options to drive him from power, short of the type of military invasion where the costs would outweigh the benefits.
Listening to the details, I guess is what you're alluding to here. I want to play a little bit of sound here from Senator Lieberman.
If Assad does what Gaddafi was doing, which is to threaten to go house to house and kill anybody who's not on his side, there's a precedent now that the world community has set in Libya, and it's the right one. We're not going to stand by and allow this Assad to slaughter his people like his father did years ago.
So, Congressman, this might concern some. Would you see this as a setup for more U.S. involvement in the Arab world?
Well, I think there's two additional factors here to keep in mind. Number one, I think has been well stated, which is, do we have broad international support? And that's not just a matter of feeling better because we have broad international support. The ability of the mission to succeed depends on how broad your support base is. You know, the broader the international community, whether it's the UN, NATO, the Arab League, the broader the support from the international community, the more able you are to succeed in the mission. And ultimately, that's the goal. We don't want to, start dropping bombs on Syria if it's not going to accomplish a clear goal. And the second factor that I think a lot of people have not talked as much about is, even if you have broad international community support, you still may have a very difficult military mission to accomplish. I think in Libya we had a clear situation. Gaddafi's forces were rolling into the major cities. We had the military might to stop that. There was a clearly achievable military objective. We've seen in the past in Lebanon and Somalia situations where there was broad international support, but there was no easy way for the military to achieve an objective. So all of those factors are in play. One situation is never exactly the same as another, and just because we went into Libya doesn't mean we'd have to go into Syria. The president and all others will have to weigh all of those factors to figure out whether or not it makes sense.
And Congressman, you were talking about support, the Arab League support, and obviously part of that is winning the hearts and minds of those in the Arab world. And we had some disturbing pictures that you're very aware of that have been surfacing showing American kill teams where soldiers are targeting Afghan citizens. How tough do you think this might make future goals going forward in the military conflicts as we watch them?
Yeah, let me make just one quick point on that point on Libya. I think that's what a lot of people are forgetting on Libya. What would have happened if the U.S., after the UN voted, NATO said they wanted to do this, if the U.S. said, no, we're not going to have anything to do with this, and Gaddafi had gone in and slaughtered those tens of thousands of civilians? That would have clearly undermined our national security interests in a very broad way, because it would have undermined our credibility in the Muslim world and in the broader world as well. So we have to keep that factor in mind. In regard to the specific photos, your commentary earlier, and I think it's spot on. In this case, these photos merely are laying out what we already knew had happened, what the U.S. military had already acted on. The soldiers who are accused of these crimes are already being tried. One has already pled guilty and been sentenced. So it's not something that we are ignoring. It's not like in the case of Abu Ghraib, where this was news to the world and when people weren't sure how the U.S. was going to react. We already stepped up before these photos, and I think in that sense, that will mitigate the damage done by them.
Congressman, have a very good Monday. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
You too. Thanks for the chance.